I'm traveling to Saddle Lake to meet Quin Buck. Quin recently moved back home so they could attend Blue Quills, a First Nations university, to learn nehiyawewin, the Cree language. They started their language learning journey by working with Reuben Quinn, a respected syllabics teacher who is also from Saddle Lake. Quin invited me to their Muslim's house to learn more about their story.
I met Reuben. I told him I knew upsis of Cree, which is as he described it, the very basic, most minimal amount you could ever imagine. And then, yeah, I guess the rest is kind of history. I rolled off into that. I started teaching as a TA at the Inner City Youth Development Association. And then we got hit by a pandemic. And I remember kind of sleeping on my friend's couch thinking what do I do? Where do I go? You know? Feeling very lonely. And then, yeah, I applied to Blue Quills on a whim. I didn't know I was going to get in, to be honest, because I was the whole university thing. But I got in, and then the problem again was funding. How was I gonna get there? But I had lived a life of just things kind of working out like that weirdly enough. And so funding fell apart, and then funding fell together, and then I got into school. And then I met my cohort for a brief moment, and we kind of built a little language learning community. And then I got invited to the New Horizons project. And that's it, Because when you get involved in that culture of going for so long, you don't have time to stop and appreciate what you have, And so for me, I came home and I just kind of sat for a couple months and then did the schooling thing. And I think it was around December where I really started going through my notes again and kind of realizing I learned a lot, there's a lot that I just kind of embodied after a certain point in time. And then I used all of that for the New Horizons project, every skill that I learned that benefits us as a team, that I can contribute to them, I learned through these years, But I didn't get to really acknowledge that because I didn't really get to kind of absorb it or really reflect on it because there was always a new experience to be chasing after. And so the new experience I'm chasing now is just I guess another day,
Yeah, and that freedom is really apparent, being here with you. And that opportunity to slow down and reflect and process and integrate experiences is so key to all this. And it's not something that when we're living the hustle city life, there's as much of an opportunity to do, to really slow down, sit, take that time to pause and reflect. And it seems like that's been a pretty important part of being back here.
If I didn't go into the language program, I was going to end up in the digital media program. And that was probably the decision that I still wrestle with today. Was because I love art, And when I saw them outside holding cameras, I was real jealous of them. I was man, that's who I want to be right now. That's where I want to be right now. But who's gonna learn the language for me, And so I was there's a sequence of events that must happen in order for this to take place.
Yeah, and that's still gonna be there for you at another time,
Well, I get to do it now,
Yeah.
I have access to the digital media program's vast camera system. And so they're allowing me to kind of fulfill that need, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
For art. And so I get to now just use my art for the language. That being home right here is probably going to be the biggest, I guess, source of inspiration for that, because I'm surrounded by people who are in it with me, I guess you could say, and people that I trust to help guide this in the right way. Because there's still so much that I don't know about the language, you know, and about the culture, and that I'm still learning. And what better place to be than home and to have these people available to ask those questions too.
Originally built in the 1930s as a residential school, Blue Quills, a First Nations university, has operated as an Indigenous-run education center for the past 50 years. A prime objective of the university is to promote a sense of pride in Indigenous heritage and reclaim traditional knowledge and practices. Quin just completed their first year of the nehiyawewin language program and was hired for the summer to work on a project recording elders speaking the language.
A lot of people in our cohort have kind of ideations of teaching in some form or another, whether it be younger children, older children, youth, adults, you know, people who just want to learn. And I think that's really what helped us kind of get through this year too, was understanding that we're all in this together for different purposes. And I think it would have been an entirely different experience had I not been in Ruben's class prior to this. Not just because he taught me syllabics, but because prior to his classroom, all I knew was competition. All I knew was how to be the sharpest tool in the shed, so to speak, you know? And it got me in a lot of very dangerous positions because there was no guidance there, you know? I was running without elders. I was just looking and saying, nobody can stop me, you know? I wanna rule the world, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, sitting in that classroom really like wakened my spirit up, because it just kind of highlighted to me that I do need people in my life. You know, I can't keep prioritizing a career over relationships. But the only reason why I prioritized career is because I was running from relationships. I had a lot of trauma that I was hiding from, you know? And I didn't really want to let people in. I didn't want to let people get close enough because I was scared of what they would know, you know? Because I felt like I was the only person going through that. And it wasn't until I started actually opening up and talking to people that I realized this is a bigger problem than anybody's talking about, and I think we need to start having conversations about it now. And so Ruben's class really helped set the tone for the way that I show up for others in my life now. And it really set the tone for the way that I show up for my peers in my classroom now, you know? Because like I know that it's not just about me, and my journey wouldn't be half as fun if it weren't for them. And so coming in with those teachings of community and cooperation and perseverance, you know, especially all together, I don't know, you know, I don't want to leave that. Why would I leave that? I think like when I think about going back to the city, that's my biggest concern, is that that's not my home. That's not my community. I have a bunch of acquaintances, you know, but I've never really felt confident in myself there. And I've never really felt like I truly belonged there or I had a home there, you know, and that was a very difficult thing to kind of navigate coming home, was a reckoning about the life that I had built for myself. Because when you go through trauma, there's a tendency to continually burn things down because you're scared, like I said.
It's scared of things being good.
Yeah.
Scared of things being healthy. Scared of things being
That is
easy.
the biggest thing. Scared of things being good, you know, because I didn't know how or what a good life would look like or how it's supposed to look like. And when I got there, I guess you could say, quote unquote, there was just this deep insecurity within myself. You know, is this good enough? Am I good enough? You know, am I somebody that my family is proud of? You know, and like I said, I didn't really have a lot of guidance getting here. Like I had my Muslims and my Kokums, and they did their best to teach me, but being queer and young, there's a lot of education you have to do on your own because we don't have those elders right now. You know, there was nobody there to pass down those teachings for us. And so a huge part of my journey was crying.
That's
a huge part of my journey was...
That's such a healthy release, though, you know? When that stuff is inside of us and we need to let it out, that is something that I don't think any of us need to feel shame about. I think it's such a healthy way for our bodies and our spirits to let go of things and move through things.
I think what I realized very early on, especially kind of just sitting with elders, is like the more that I heal myself, the more that I heal my community. But I never knew what that meant, you know? I was like, well, how am I healing myself if I'm healing my community, you know? And then realizing that people watch your journey, you know? People see the work that you're doing, even if they're not there vocalizing it, even if they're not there telling you it personally, because some people are never gonna have the courage to be like, Eli, you're doing a really great job and I'm proud of you, you know? Because we don't teach people that. We don't teach people to celebrate each other like that.
Oh, yeah.
And so for me, it was understanding that like a huge part of this is just going to have to be me showing up, not really knowing what I'm doing, and then kind of doing that, not really seeking recognition because it might not ever come,
Yeah, and just doing the best that we can, and really thinking that, leading by example or inspiring other people, that is going to ripple out. That is like the best that we can do, is take care of ourselves the best that we can and be held up and have that go back out to the relationships and the kinship connections that hold us in these places.
Yeah.
Quin just completed their first year of the nehiyawewin language program and was hired for the summer to work on a project recording elders speaking the language. Quin's co-worker Edwin showed me one of the rooms at the school where they interview elders. A fluent Cree speaker, Edwin spoke about the importance of doing this work in a good way.
That space felt really safe, really comfortable. I'm sure anybody that's coming in there to participate in this is going to feel that as well.
Yeah, and that was our goal. That was our goal too. It's all about the elders. It's all about the knowledge keepers. The language keepers. It's because it doesn't feel comfortable where you feel like you're not wanted somewhere. You kind of want to leave the space, but when you're felt, you're made to feel comfortable. You're inclusion. You feel included. You're wanted to stay. Actually, we've had the one elder. He's come up here multiple times. I guess he just likes the space, and so the environment he's in, and how it makes him feel, and that's what we want. Because essentially they're our library. That's our library. Of language, of cultural teachings, of things being handed down. We may come from different corners of the world, different corners of Turtle Island, but all of it is connection. Finding each other and learning from each other, and that's the end goal. To be able to pass on the knowledge. And in the day of digital media, it's what a better way to do it, to catch all of that and be able to log it in, and for others to be able to view that.
In the neighboring community of Goodfish Lake, Quin's Cookham invited us into her home to meet Quin's mother and talk about what it means for the family to support Quin learning the language. We had the opportunity today to go to Blue Quills and meet the team that Quin is working with over the summer. I'm curious how this feels for both of you to be watching Quin do this, supporting them to do this.
When it comes down to language, I unfortunately didn't grow up learning the Cree language, although my parents spoke it and grandparents. I took French instead. And I moved away, so I've lost out on opportunities. And seeing Quin go through learning the language, learning the traditions, the values, it enlightens my heart, because this is something as a mother I should have been teaching him, and that should have been brought down. And it's always, for myself, great to see the younger generation picking up on lost traditions, lost language. Plus, I know he's smart, just like me.
That's where he gets it.
That's where he gets it from.
I'm so happy for Quin that he's going to school, because when he was a baby, he was really sick. And I prayed for him to get well that time. And I still prayed for him to do something good about his life, to work for other people, and to work with them. I guess I can go on and on about everything, but it's so sad. This younger generation lost our language. because we never thought them.
But there were also a lot of barriers to Cookham. You know, there was a lot of things to work through in our own family, because it hasn't always been easy, especially with like Blue Quills and the stuff that, you know, older generations went through as well. And so I think for me, like my mom said, it was just kind of about going out there and trying to figure out what was going to make me me, you know, and what was going to help me find a sense of belonging, because that's really what I wanted. You know, I didn't really feel a whole sense of belonging growing up. And so to be supported and to be loved by my mom and my nukum means a lot to me. I know that there are other family members out there who are watching as well. I never really thought of it as a detriment that it was never handed down to me, because I knew that me speaking would bring it back, you know? It kind of felt like everything they tried to break, as you can see, it's coming back, you know? And it's not just me, because I know that my cousins are waking up as well, you know? And they're nervous, but looking forward to undertaking their own learning journeys. And I'm really looking forward to that, because that means that I get to grow old with them with that knowledge, and I don't have to feel alone and thinking like I'm the only person who holds it. But I did it because had, you know, the residential school has not existed, it's what my grandparents would have wanted for me. But, you know, like my mom said, we were raised in the city and we were brought through a lot of very different hardships. And I don't know, it was like my spirit just told me it was time to go home one day, you know, not in a drastic sense of the word, but back to my family. And I'm really grateful that it was the language, you know, that brought me back. And it wasn't trauma, and it wasn't fear, and it wasn't me running from something. It was me running towards something. And I was always scared about who would be here when I came back, because I'd been gone for so long, you know. But my cookum was here, and I wouldn't have gone to school, to be honest, if it wasn't for her, because she signed my witness line, you know. She let me go, and I knew I wouldn't go if I didn't have that signature. I knew I wouldn't go if I didn't have that support, because I wasn't sure what my family would kind of go through as a result, and I wasn't sure what I was going to put them through by being in those halls. And so once I got accepted, I kind of came to my cookum and I told her, "Cookum, this is the plan, you know, like this is what I want to do." And you were a little quiet that day. But after that conversation, you know, she was like, "This is important." And it was with her blessing that I entered that hall, you know. It was with her blessing that I sat in that room. There is no point in my journey that I've ever felt like this is me by myself. There has always been somebody there with me, and if there was nobody there with me, I've always made sure that there has been somebody there with me, because I know how much support it actually takes to sit in these spaces. And I am not so much, you know, I'm a whole person in and unto myself, but I am very much so a composite of the love that is in my life and the support that is in my life. And that's what people see when they meet me. And that's where I try to meet people from when I see them, is the love that my mom gave to me, you know, and the love that I get from my cookum, and the love that I get from my puppy. And that's what I try to carry forward. I don't have to question where I belong in this world, because they remind me.
What does this place mean to you?
This place has always been home, but there's been like no home for me here. Like, we grew up in the city, and so when we come down, we stay on couches or air mattresses. You know, staying at my Muslims was the first time I actually had a room since we left. And so that has been wild in and of itself. Having a place to lay my head every night down here has been wild. Because I never thought that that would ever be a reality, you know? Being home really realigned who I am and set me straight. I think around May, when I turned 30, I really started to think about what I wanted to do. And I knew that I was already too far into this to give up or go back. You know, I didn't want to go back to the city where I was always filled with uncertainty.
What's felt really powerful to me is spending this time with your mom and your kukum here and witnessing that like deep love and connection and care and support that you have. I'm wondering how that feels for you to be so close and to be able to do that a lot more often than when living in the city.
I think it was after winter that I kind of fell in love with everything, and I didn't know how to tell anybody that, you know? I didn't know how to tell anybody that I didn't want to move back to the city. Being with my kukum and my mom, and I didn't really feel like I was here until my mom and my kukum started telling me about what they were hearing about me in community. And I initially kind of felt like it would be negative things, but I guess people were kind of grateful that I was back, you know? And that felt really good, because for a long while here, I was always uncertain about whether or not I had a spot here, you know? Whether or not I was going to be welcomed into community here. And being welcomed home has been really beautiful. That I still have the love of my parents, you know, and the support of my Muslim and my kukum to really do this work. Because this is fun. You know, this isn't me going out there and trying to show them how well I can do it. It's just me saying, like, the language is important, you know? The way we build communities are important. How we look after one another is important. You know, I thought I really had everything figured out until I came home. And that's really when I started learning that this is where my real education is going to happen.